What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Craft Beer Playbook. Zach here.
Brian's here.
We're getting better at that. I had a feeling after the intro video we would be better at that moving forward. And we're doing episode 1 here today. And the brewery we're going to feature is Cigar City. It's probably the biggest brewery in the Tampa Bay area, and certainly one that has set the tone for, I think, the brewery landscape throughout the Tampa Bay area and the surrounding areas. So we'll definitely touch on, all their locations and how they've grown and what they've got going on locally. And then also, we haven't had any games yet, but the NFL playoffs are set.
I'm excited about that.
I'm pumped, dude. Here's the thing, and I know we're going to get into the NFL stuff a lot. I'm just happy we made it here.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't know that was like a for sure thing that was going to happen, right? Like, with the pandemic and everything and the season starting, there's a lot of skeptics that the NFL would have a full season.
Yeah, and I know for us, in our fantasy football league, we talked about, what's going to happen this week if this player sits, and it's just been chaos all year. So I agree with you. It's amazing that we've made it to this point, and it looks like, fingers crossed, we're going to actually finish the season, hopefully. So hopefully no more delays. I'm pumped for the playoffs. A lot of great matchups, so a lot of good stuff to get into.
Now, that's not to say that the pandemic hasn't affected the playoffs. Devin White, linebacker for the Bucs, one of the player/coaches that won't be available this weekend during the games. Alvin Kamara is going to be available for the Saints, but we weren't sure about that. If they had to play on a Saturday, they'd be in a similar boat as the Bucs. The Browns coaching staff dealing with issues, so it is still affecting, but we're going to get games, and that's important, and we're happy about that. We're also going to talk to you guys about our giveaway we're doing throughout the NFL playoffs. It's a great contest, so we'll tell you all about that if you haven't checked it out yet on social media. And we're going to get into a little bit with Four Stacks Brewing, too. It's another local brewery over in Apollo Beach that has had some struggles, and we want to try to find out how we can help them out and just get with you guys and gals on that a little bit as well. But before we get into anything else, Brian, obviously we got some great beers here. I mentioned Cigar City being the brewery we're going to focus on. We got the Margarita Ghost, we got the Guayabera, we got the High Low, not to be confused with the High Lie, Fancy Papers, and Maduro Brown Ale. So we've got a nice little selection here. They clearly have a lot more going on than just these 5. But again, my favorite question to ask you every episode, where do we start?
Well, first I want to shout out, some of you guys. We kind of mentioned this week, like, okay, we're going to be looking at some of these different breweries. We're going to start with Cigar City, and we basically made our decisions today based on like the most popular answers we got from you guys. So love the engagement on social media. Definitely share with us, like, what's your favorite, why it's your favorite, because sometimes we're going to come across some of these that, we haven't tried, at least for me. I know the Fancy Papers I haven't tried yet. I've heard a lot of great things, so I'm excited about that. But I think as far as where we start today, we kind of got it arranged in sort of a light.
One of these behind the scenes here on the Craft Beer Playbook, one of these was already in your fridge before we even decided on Cigar City.
Right. So these came from Total Wine. They're more room temperature, although we got some nice weather today. But we're going to start where it's cold. All right. So we're going to go with the Margarita Ghost, which I know has been a popular one that was mentioned this week on social media. Yeah. Personally, I love this. I discovered this a few months ago during football season when it was still hot outside. And it's one of the things I really love about it is because, I'm a big sour guy. We kind of did that a little bit on the intro video as well. And, there's so many unique ways to go with the sour. And having something like a Margarita Ghost is just that, like, really refreshing. It's not overpowering, but it's got that nice lime taste. So I love it. I think it's perfect for like any occasion, but especially like a nice hot day.
Is there tequila in it?
I don't know. No.
Do we use a salt rim? These are the questions I need to know.
We crush a little lime in there, but no, I think that it's good for any occasion, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to open this one up. I'll pour us up.
Let's do it. And so again, Craft Beer Playbook, Zach Blobner, Brian Ritchie. You can follow us across social media. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Craft Playbook. Also at the Craft Beer Playbook, excuse me. There's also opportunities for our giveaway on all of the social platforms. If you want to do multiple entries, you can do so on any of those. Twitter, it's at Beer Playbook. So find us across those, follow, like those posts, and that'll give you opportunities to hopefully win some of these prizes that we're doing. And again, we'll get more into that. But as we feature Cigar City Brewing today, it was an easy choice where we were going to start this whole journey with you all and with each other here too as we taste some beers, because as me and Brian noted in our intro video, that's where it all began for us, at least in Tampa Bay. Now, clearly we had drinks and tried craft beers prior to, moving back to town. We both went to school in Gainesville and then certainly traveled and tried different beers in different places. But if you're talking craft beer and you're talking Tampa Bay, the conversation starts at Cigar City.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, looking at kind of the rich history of the Tampa area and the city of Tampa, you've obviously got Ybor. You look at just the name, Cigar City, right? So that's, a kickback to the heritage of, the Cuban influence and the cigars. We've got the Maduro brown ale. Obviously, that's a great place to start. And it was for both of us kind of in the Tampa area with different craft beers, because it's kind of that namesake, right, of Tampa.
Yeah.
You think of Cigar City as the main brewery here.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because Tampa has blown up with a lot of these other breweries that are growing. But I think that when you think of kind of that linchpin, right, of where craft beer really starts in Tampa, you immediately think of Cigar City.
Yeah, and another thing too, we talked about last week in the intro video how so many breweries start out in warehouses. And Cigar City's no different. They had a smaller little area of a bar, and you could do the warehouse tours and all that. Now it's a full-on restaurant bar. They've got outside seating. They have a spot in the airport, the Tampa airport. They have a spot right outside of Amalie Arena. So if you're going to watch the Lightning or the Raptors play, they're right there. So it's entwined with the sports community from that aspect of things. There used to be a brew pub, which, not many breweries can start up a second location or a second type of thing, have that shut down and continue to grow.
Yeah.
And Cigar City did just that. So they're all over the place. You can find them not just at their main location, but I mentioned a few of the other spots. In Ybor, they had this cider and meadery. They're literally all over the place, dude.
Yeah. And obviously for those of you that are very familiar with Cigar City, you've I'm sure tried their Hunapoo. They've had their big release events every year for Hunapoo. And they just brew just fantastic beer. And you talked about doing the tour. And I remember when it was still very small, doing that actual tour. And it was great. They give you a glass of free beer and you walk around and you act like you know what the hell they're talking about.
That's why you do more than one tour, right? Because we've all been on brewery tours.
Yeah.
You go on more brewery tours in different places. Yeah, to check everything out, but you want the free beer, hopefully the free pint glass, and to be oh yeah, we did the tour there. That's how we started things out. And Cigar City, like you mentioned, it was no different for us, and they still do tours. It's just a little bit of a different look now when you go to do just that. Let's take a little sip here. I'm excited.
Cheers. Let's dive into this. So this is the Margarita Goes.
That is refreshing. You're right.
I love it.
Woo!
And just kind of give you guys who haven't tried it just a little bit.
I'm so thirsty. That was so perfect.
It says our Margarita Goes utilizes orange peel, lime, and salt to create a zesty, light-bodied, and entirely unique beer experience. I think that nails it, right? Yeah. It's very light, definitely a strong lime taste, very tart. But if you're looking for something that's really good and refreshing on a hot day, if you're into sours, this is hard to beat, honestly.
Well, it's funny because you do taste the orange. You get a little salt on the tail end. So
so you already got your salt rim. There you go. See, you just throw a little.
I taste it, bro. I'm in it. I have the salt. I'm a salty person. I can be. So that's obviously refreshing, as is the NFL playoffs. And we'll get into some more of these beers as we kind of go throughout the show this morning. But we'll start in the NFC, and obviously the hometown team here in Tampa Bay is the Buccaneers. I think when you look at the spreads of the Super Wild Card weekend, the three games with the biggest spreads are the Colts at Buffalo, which we'll also talk about. Chicago, obviously, in New Orleans is a giant spread for the playoffs, at least. And then the Bucs in Washington is actually one that's been going up. It started at about a touchdown. It's 8.5 now. But the Bucs head to Washington, the football team. Mind you, we don't call them the other name anymore. So if we do, that's $1 in the jar for our next beer run. But Washington has a great defensive line. And, we can dig into the matchup a little bit. But I think the best part about these two teams in this game is Tom Brady, the vet, Chase Young, the rookie, and the chatter between those guys of wanting to get at it.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised to see that. Chase Young's been a guy who's kind of, he hasn't talked real much this year. He's obviously made some pretty good plays. He's been
hell of a player.
Yeah, he's been fantastic as a rookie. But to see him kind of come out and say, right after the game, I want Tom. It just kind of shows, obviously, the legacy, though, that Tom has and how that's kind of carried across and now, obviously, into the NFC, where he's just, dominated the AFC for so long. And it's cool. I think that's fun because it gives us something, I think, a little bit more to be excited about with this game because, a casual fan or even just surface level, you look at this and you're like, it's a losing record. Sorry, not the Redskins, the football team.
That's $1 in the jar for the beer run.
But, the football team, they, you watch them and they don't play an entirely exciting brand of football. You know, they're not lighting up the scoreboard unless maybe that, you know, they're playing the Lions, you know, but
well, that's everybody that plays the Lions in 2021.
But I mean, I think it just adds a little fuel to the fire here. It gives us another headline to look at. And you got this young, you know, front seven that's just, I mean, beastly with Washington, and they get after the quarterback really well. And that's been, you know, throughout this year, some of the games that Tom Brady has really mostly struggled with. You look at the Rams game, you know, they lost that when they were favored. You know, teams that have that strong front seven that can pressure you, you know, pressure Tom, you know, up the middle, tend to give him trouble. So I think this game's going to be a lot closer than the spread thinks. I don't know if Washington has enough offense to maybe hang if Tom's on. But
well, they're looking at doing potentially a 2-quarterback system because Alex Smith's still banged up. They might try to run him out there. And then what's the dude's name? Heineken, as we do a Craft Beer Playbook episode here. Heineke, whatever it is, he's the other cat that'll be involved. That doesn't necessarily bode well for Washington's offense, but a guy that I'm focused on, and I know Antonio Gibson's had a great year, rookie season at running back. Scary Terry McLaurin, I think, is going to give the Bucs problems. And I know that Carlton Davis, their best corner in Tampa Bay, is getting healthy. He's getting acclimated from an injury to the groin injury to get back on the field. But even with him there, and look, McLaurin isn't Tyreek Hill, but I think he's as good, if not better, than Calvin Ridley, who had his way with the Bucs a few weeks ago. And I think Scary Terry's a guy that, you know, again, in the quarterback, it matters, but McLaurin's going to give guys fits on the outside, whether it's Carlton Davis, if he gets matched up against Dean, or any of the other cornerbacks in Tampa Bay. I think that's an area where we haven't talked about enough because we're focused on the D-line for Washington against the Bucs offense.
Yeah, and I know, you know, the Bucs have had their issues in the secondary this year. I mean, we all saw what Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes did to that secondary. And like you said, I don't think that, you know, this offense has that level of, you know, weaponry to go to, especially to stretch the field and that amount of speed. But they have shown some weaknesses in the secondary this year. And Terry McLaurin, I think, you know, we'd probably both agree, one of the most underrated receivers still, even though he was a rookie last year, followed that up with a great, you know, second season. He's still very underrated. He's a guy that gets open. You know, he's got good athleticism. So I think that's going to give the Bucs some trouble as well. But like I said, I'm really intrigued in this game. You know, surface level, you look at, okay, does the NFC East even deserve to have? But if you remember many years ago, before Seattle went on their run, they were 7-9 and won their division and hosted a playoff game against the Saints, who, again, that year were one of the Super Bowl favorites. And then, of course, on the back of Marshawn Lynch with that famous run.
Beast mode,
right? They won the game. So I think that, you know, the playoffs are just a totally different story. And you get in, and they say, get into the dance. That's all you got to worry about. And when you have a defense that's as strong as Washington's has been this year, it's going to give them a shot.
For sure. Obviously, you know, we're not going to pick against the spread on every single game. I do like the Bucs to win in Washington, though. I get the any given Saturday or Sunday, whatever phrase that we use in football. But, you know, I think if you're just being a logical person, you got to pick the Bucs to win. I think it'd be a more fun conversation if we knew Alex Smith was fully healthy and ready to roll. Then maybe you can talk about it. I just don't know how their offense keeps up.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, for me, because defense does tend to be a factor in the playoffs, I think this game will be a bit closer. For me, it kind of depends on what that spread kind of finishes at kickoff. I think if you're looking in the range of, you know, 7.5, 8, 8.5, you know, I think Washington has every ability to play within that.
Agreed.
And keep it a close game. I do expect Tampa, I think, to outright win this, but I do think it might be a closer game than some people expect just because of the difference in records.
Hey, if you're Washington, you're just happy to be there too, right? I mean, you're trying to win, but like, come on, there's, you know, you're happy to be in the mix.
You're happy to be in the mix, although, you know, you got to look at it and say, man, you know, you look at what the Eagles did, you know, did they tank? Did they throw that game? You know, and it's like the NFC, it's like, it's such a crazy discrepancy. You're either, you win the division and you're in, or you're picking like top 7, you know? So
it's a win-win.
It's a tough thing though, but
it's a win-win. If you're an NFC East team, you're either in the playoffs or you're picking top 10. That's
I
pretty
get it.
good.
You always want to be in, but I look at Washington and say, they're still many pieces away. They're not going to contend for a Super Bowl. And now it kind of puts them in a tough spot in this draft, but I get it. You know, you want to get in as a fan. You want to see your team on, you know, play that at least one extra game.
Now, a game that I think is probably the headliner when it comes to the NFC is certainly the Rams heading to Seattle. Those two teams know each other very well, divisional opponents. Another quarterback that's banged up, though, in Jared Goff. He didn't play last week. Now, apparently, Sean McVay is kind of like playing coy, and he's like, I don't know, maybe we'll go with second, third, fourth string. Maybe it'll be Goff. Like, he's just being that guy. But Aaron Donald, similar to Chase Young, is like, we're ready for Seattle. We're ready to roll. And I think that obviously we all know about the Rams defense. Jalen Ramsey, another spectacular year out there in the cornerback position. But Russell Wilson is very hard to bet against in the playoffs. And that offense can get rolling even though their defense is suspect.
And you know what's weird is I'm not sure really exactly what's happened with Seattle's offense over the last 2 months of the season. I went back and looked the other day, and I believe Russell Wilson.
They got Carson back, the running back, those last few weeks.
Yeah.
So in theory, they should have been better, but they weren't overall. They were worse.
Something has happened with the play calling or strategies, and I went back and looked, and Russell Wilson, I believe, has only thrown for over 250 yards once since like week 7.
Which is insane because you have Metcalf and Lockett. I mean, even if the O-line went to shreds for Seattle, Russell can make things happen on his feet, and you get, I mentioned Carson back, so like that should have helped. It's really odd that they've just all of a sudden like become deflated as far as the offense goes.
And trust me, I've watched it closely because I had Russell Wilson in fantasy, and it killed me to end the season. And I have Chris Carson. I'm a big Chris Carson stan. As
Have
you
been
know.
for a long time.
Have been for a very long time. I'm like the president of the fan club
For
there.
sure.
But it's just been so frustrating to watch that offense have so many weapons, and yet for whatever reason, they're just not scoring. They can't sustain drives. And it makes me lean towards the Rams this week.
Really?
Yes, because
in Seattle, no 12th man.
And again, Seattle, they just home field advantage just hasn't even been that big of an advantage for them over the last few months.
Well, especially this year with the pandemic, it's not the same.
Right, not the same. And there has been some instances where there's been some pretty big upsets. But
so you're taking LA. I think that's about a 3.5 point game.
I think it kind of depends. And again, I don't think Goff really adds a ton to that team.
Well, right? He does add though. He's better than the backup.
Right, of course, which is why I think that kind of matters if he's going to play or not. But I tell you, I'm not shocked at all if the Rams win. And as of right this month, if you put a gun to my head, I would say I'm picking the Rams.
What if instead of a gun to your head, I asked you to open the next beer?
I'm ready for that.
All right. I'm picking Seattle, so we have a disagreement there. But again, that to me is the primetime game in the NFC. It's the closest game, divisional opponent, two really good teams. And I could see the argument for either side, especially if Goff plays.
I think it will be a close game. These two teams know each other well, obviously divisional opponents. That's always a ton of fun anyways. But then you get that in the mix there. And that's been such a competitive division now for the last few years. A lot of these teams, like the Cardinals, are coming up too.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for it. But like I said, I look at this and I look at teams that have come in hot. And, you look at the Steelers many years ago when they were a 6th seed and went on and won the Super Bowl. They came in hot, and that's the thing. Is like I look at the Seahawks right now. I just consider them kind of almost ice cold coming in.
I get it. It's just weird to hear that. All right, so next we're going to head to Guayabera.
Guayabera.
This was a fun one to learn how to pronounce before we get into exactly what it is, and then we'll finish up the AFC Super Wildcard Weekend matchups with the Bears in New Orleans taking on the Saints. But Guayabera is a Citra Pale Ale.
Citra Pale Ale. A hop that imparts notes of tangerine, a lime, and berries to this American Pale Ale. So
we've had it. It's pretty steady. It's good drinking. And I think it's interesting to pair this after we just had the Margarita Ghost because you get that citra taste still, right? So that kind of plays in. You won't get as much salt on this for sure.
Right.
And then it is a pale ale, so you're going to get a little bit more pop in the hop.
Pop in the hop
when it comes to trying this one out. Actually, looking at the cans side by side, they're pretty damn close to each other, minus the pink swapped out for the blue. But Guayabera, this is one I think, and we mentioned being in Tampa Bay, it does get toasty, right? So the more easy drinking you can get, the better, especially as the sun shines.
You mentioned the design too, and I like that. It's just like it kind of jumps out at you. Both of these, I think, is just like more of that like really refreshing sort of like, hey, hot day. Like you think of Guayabera, you think of like the ingredients.
Is that a fruit? What's a Guayabera?
I have no idea. There's like some kind of design. It's like that looks like some
what
kind
is
of
a Guayabera?
Some kind of horse.
Do we know what a Guayabera is? I'm Googling it.
I don't know what that animal
is. I'm Googling it.
But I'm going to go ahead and try it. I mean, try it again. I try to be
What is a Guayabera? I didn't spell that right at all. Could you spell it right now without looking at it?
Yeah. Guayabera.
Yes. Not your average bear there, Guayabera.
See, I'm very cultured, so things are easy for me.
You're not cultured enough. It's an open-necked Cuban or Mexican shirt with 2 breast pockets and 2 pockets over the hips, typically having short sleeves and worn untucked. Looks like I know what you're getting for your birthday, and it's not the beer.
That's pretty awesome.
Did not know that. Here, you want to see it? I'll put a picture in the video, but that's what it looks like.
All right.
Pretty interesting.
Maybe I should wear one for the.
Hey, I like it,
we
dude.
should both wear guayaberas for the
You
next
should
episode.
totally wear one for the next episode. You should totally
You
wear
said it's
one.
Mexican, which makes me feel bad because my wife is Mexican and I didn't know what a guayabera was.
But now when she comes home, you can be like, babe, I'm going to buy a guayabera and we're going to go out dancing.
I'm going all out. I'm just going to wear the sombrero next episode, guayabera. I'm just going to,
So
we'll drink another margarita goes.
or 10. Another team or person or thing that needs to go all out is the Chicago Bears. They're traveling to New Orleans. They're heading into the playoffs on a loss. Mitch Trubisky. I don't have to tell you why they're the underdog against the Saints, who get Alvin Kamara back, who have one of the best defenses in the league right now. And Drew Brees, from what we understand, pretty healthy, although we can talk about his arm strength. But when it comes to that final NFC matchup, a pretty blunt question here. Do the Bears have any chance?
I think as long as you have a defense, you always have a chance in the playoffs. And that's why I said that. That's why I love the playoffs so much, is because a lot of these games end up being a lot closer. And a lot of people look at this and they just kind of pick their bracket based on record. And they're like, well, this team's played better throughout the year. But you see upsets every year, big upsets, where, sometimes you look at a Super Bowl favorite and they get knocked out first round or second round, by a team that just makes a run. And I think with the Bears, they're such a hard team to pin because it's like, I've watched them some games.
I know.
They're really into it. And you're like, wow, this defense is playing really well. And then you watch them get torched by Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And you're like, well, maybe their defense sucks.
But isn't it kind of the same thing with their quarterback? It's funny that you say that, like, it's hard to, because I feel the same way about Trubisky, because he'll have a game where he scores like 3 touchdowns, no picks. And you're like, and he can run. And you're like, maybe he's a franchise player. And then you're like, they're going to bench him for Mike Glennon again because he's awful, or whoever the backup is.
Nick Foles. So let me ask you this.
They've done it multiple years, though.
So
it's not just this year.
Seeing what you've seen so far this year out of that offense being run under Nick Foles or under Mitchell Trubisky, who gives them the best chance to win this game?
Trubisky. Because his ceiling's higher. His basement's lower, but his ceiling's higher.
I think he gives them that athleticism to run the ball, get on the edge. And look, the Saints have a great defense. This is going to be a really tough
great
game. And I haven't looked at the over-under, but I expect it to be pretty
10.5 is the, well, that's not the over-under. 10.5 is the spread. So if you're thinking the Saints are going to win by, 10 points, the over-under's got to be around at least like 40, 45.
Yeah, and I expect it to be pretty low because both these teams, and I expect Chicago's defense to show up.
Yeah.
And like you said, it just boils down to Trubisky. Like, does he have that great game where he comes out and he plays really well and really athletic, or is he kind of like he is who we thought he was?
Isn't it crazy though that at this point in the Bears with Trubisky, we're still like, there is a chance he could come out and have a great game. And the only people that would know that would be people that play fantasy football, because he's a waiver wire type of guy where if you're in a tough spot and you want to roll the dice, he's a great guy to do it with, because some weeks he'll go off for 35 points and you're like, who is this cat? Who is this? Is Mitch or Mitchell Trubisky playing today? Like, is it good or bad? So
I think it kind of comes back to the old, Blake Bortles argument, though. Like, a lot of his points, though, have
Trubisky's better than Bortles. Can we agree on that? I know where you're going with this analogy, but
I'm not ready to say that yet.
What?
I think they're both bad.
Fair.
It's like
right.
Trubisky got benched literally for Nick Foles, and yes, he's played better in the second half of the season, when he's been in there a few games, but a lot of his stuff does seem to be garbage time too, and the Bears are just so up and down. This one's hard for me to predict, but which way are you leaning on this in terms of, obviously I know you think the Saints are going to win.
Yeah, we're both going to pick the Saints.
But where are you at on the spread with this one?
Man, I just think they're going to blow the doors off of the Bears. Yeah. It's so tough to think. And I watched the full Chicago Packers game, and I think it was like 2.5 quarters in before you really felt like it was out of hand. And there were moments where you were watching Trubisky and you're like, okay, I see it. And Montgomery is running fantastically for the first time. He's doing what we expected him to do when he got to Chicago, finally. So they have a great running game going. It's just impossible for me to expect Trubisky, because he's not consistent, to do something like that, to have a big game. I think he's capable. I think the Saints win pretty easily. It's in the Dome. Kamara comes back. I'd be surprised if they didn't easily cover the 10.5.
Yeah, Bears kind of backing into the playoffs a little bit. They're not coming in like red hot. So I'm going with the Saints on this. I do think that they'll end up covering, but I think Chicago makes some plays. I think that Drew Brees is not going to play mistake free. I think they might have a turnover or two, and this game I think is one of those ones where it might start off kind of close. Maybe halftime, if you're a betting person, maybe looking at what the first half spread might be for the Bears, I think they hang in it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think second half is one of those games where the Saints.
It's exactly what happened against the Packers. And I'm with you. Like, I think verbatim, that's kind of how it's going to go. Very similar. The difference being that it is in a dome, I guess, as opposed to the Lambeau weather. But that wraps up the NFC and a couple beers that we've had. We're going to take a timeout and hit our halftime slot right now. I know. Is that too cheesy? Are we doing that?
Halftime. Timeout.
Did they do that at halftime?
I don't know.
That's in that first and inches? Like, all right. Anyways, we're going to take a timeout here. We're going to hit halftime. And when we return, we're going to get the other 3 beers and we're going to hit the AFC. But a reminder before we go that we are doing a big giveaway. And we're going to tell you more about that in the rules and how you can enter to win a Total Wine gift card along with a...
We're showing this off?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, all right, here we go.
This football, Tom Brady Buccaneers. It's a very collectible football, so we're going to have that in the gift package and some beer swag from around the local brewery. So we'll tell you how to win that, and we'll get into AFC and the rest of these 3 Cigar City beers when we return.
Cheers.
What's up, guys and gals? Zach Globner, Brian Ritchie. We're back after halftime. This is the Craft Beer Playbook, episode 1. We're focusing on Cigar City in the NFL playoffs to kick things off here on the vlog and podcast. And we've got 2 beers down. We're going to go to the high-low next, which is like the highlight. And me and you have mentioned that the highlight is one of the most noticeable beers in Tampa Bay. It's one that has been noted throughout the country as one of the better IPAs to grab. And personally, one of my favorite beers ever, the White Oak Aged Highlight. That's a top 5 beer for me. So I'm excited to try this because this is how many calories?
How many calories? It actually, 120.
120?
Is
Okay.
that calories?
Yeah, has to be.
I don't know.
What else would it be?
I don't know.
Did I make that up? I might have made that up. I
We'll
think
look
it's
it up
120.
later. I don't know.
So
We're
the
not
idea is to
experts.
cut calories and carbs on this. And you see a lot of places doing this. I'm very against doing this with a really good beer, but I'll be honest, I've heard great things. I've heard it tastes pretty much the same. So we're going to get that poured up and we'll see if it does taste like a highlight. I'm interested to hear.
I've never tried it. Definitely looks like
You didn't want to get this. You can be honest. You didn't want to get this.
I didn't want to get
You were
it.
like,
I
I don't
listen,
want the.
if
You
I'm
get the
gonna
high.
go-
You told me to get the highlight.
If I'm going to dive into an IPA, I'm diving into an IPA. I'm not really on a diet if I'm going for IPAs, but hey,
It's
like
2021, bro. You got to accommodate to a lot of different audiences.
yeah, they're trying to do their thing. You've got a billion different seltzers out there now, so I get it.
All right. So speaking of accommodating, the NFL isn't being very accommodating for the Cleveland Browns, who have made the playoffs for the first time in a long time. As we dive into the AFC.
Welcome to the
side.
club, right? Hey, what should they get accommodated? They haven't been here in forever. They adapt to the rules.
Well, again, I don't know how much you want to look into it, but I mentioned the Bucs, no Devin White, because they play Saturday. Had they played Sunday, they probably have him back. Hey, first time, long time. Guess what? You got to deal with what happens.
Exactly.
The Bucs do, the Browns do, at a much higher level with Stefanski, their head coach, possibly not being available. It's going to be a weird thing for them. Now, they did just beat Pittsburgh. Now they're heading back to Heinz Field. Roethlisberger didn't play. Mason Rudolph did. The holidays are over, as you know. Hopefully you've taken your tree down. We're doing ours this weekend because Ariel, my fiance, forced me to keep it up.
I got the lights
for another
down,
week.
but I can't do everything in one day.
Right.
Like, I'll take the lights down. I'll crack a beer. We'll do the tree tomorrow.
What's the last thing you put away? Do you have it? Is it the tree, or is the tree just in the mix, or is it the first? Well, you mentioned the lights are down.
The tree went up last, and it's going down last.
I think
So
that's a
it's-
lot of people.
Yeah. For me, I usually handle the lights. The wife usually does the inside decorating. She's better at it than me. I tried to do the tree. She redid it anyways. So I was like, I felt bad.
I don't
was
even
like,
touch it, bro.
She's like,
I don't
no,
even
thank
know.
you for trying, but I was like laughing. I'm like, well,
I don't
shit,
even
I
touch
didn't
it.
do a great job. But
Well, you tried. You
I
get an
tried.
A
No, I
for
did the
effort.
lights. The lights were good. I put up the snowman out front. Snowman looked good.
You got a bad history with snowmen up front of houses.
That's a story
That'd
for a
be-
different day. Yeah, so
That's next year if we get that far. Hopefully we do.
so let's
but-
try this.
Yeah, I'm
All right.
excited. Well, we're going to take a second from the AFC because I really do want to.
Nah.
Does not taste like highlight.
I'm not
It's
feeling
not bad. It tastes like a beer. I know
tastes
I know
like-
that doesn't mean anything. It tastes like a beer.
that.
It tastes like a beer, dude. It
if I were
does.
like, hey, here's an IPA that we kind of got bored making halfway through, so we just bottled it up. Try it out. Tell me what you think. Like,
but it's only 120 calories.
It doesn't have the
There's
same,
that big like emphasis at the end.
It's true. It's true. I mean, well, I don't know. Is that
I don't know.
years? I mean, they got a highlight guy in there,
I don't
120
know.
years. I mean, it's an old city playing highlight. That
I
might
don't
be
love it.
Whatever.
I don't love it. I wouldn't order it again. I'm gonna drink it now.
I'll do it for the video.
I would shotgun this beer.
You do 3 of them, that'll be the last 3 shotguns you ever do.
There's too much equipment to make me spit my beer out right now. We would need to get a lot more sponsors
I'm not
involved.
loving it. Oh, you're all right. It's 120 calories. You're right.
Boom.
Carbohydrates, 11 grams, no protein. So.
Do you think I'm right about the Steelers beating the Browns in the AFC?
You're not gonna like my answer.
I don't like most of your answers though, so that's par for the course.
This is another.
No coach. You're all COVID. There's no coaches.
This is another upset I'm going with. Okay. Steelers look like to me another team that's coming in really cold.
Played with Mason Rudolph, the backup. You got to take that into consideration.
No, of course. I'm not even looking at that.
I'm basically
because again, the Browns were what, a 10.5-point favorite for that game at kickoff because of the Steelers resting a lot of their players. And again, this is one I could very easily be dead wrong on because I've been a big believer, as you know, this year in the Steelers.
You're comparing him to Seattle when you say that's another team that's coming in.
They're coming in cold, and Big Ben, they've kind of hidden him this year behind like these quick passes and playing defense.
They've got 8 great receivers. They can move it around a little bit.
Yeah.
The guys are dropping balls in Pittsburgh.
Dropping balls. I think you guys are leading the league in dropped passes.
I don't know who you guys is, but
well,
no, I'm just kidding.
You got to claim them. I mean,
I do claim them, and that's why we started here. It wasn't by default. They're the last game on Sunday, the last game of the slate. And look, I'm certainly optimistic that Pittsburgh is going to win this game. I think Roethlisberger can squeeze out one playoff win. I don't expect much from them in the postseason. We talked at the beginning of the year, Brian. I didn't even pick them to get in because I was like, I can't trust Ben at his age to be consistent. Now, he balled early. I did not expect that. But it averaged out, like you said. And, to the same point you made about Seattle, although I do think Pittsburgh is going to win, I do think it could go either way. But to what you said about Seattle, it's not like Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson and all these guys all of a sudden suck, and Eric Ebron sucks, and that offensive line with multiple Pro Bowlers sucks. They just are deflated. Now, if Connor's not in, they're obviously a lot worse because they can't run it all without him. With him, they can barely run too. But it's just crazy, the discrepancy in how good that offense has been at different times and how dog poop awful it's been for like a month and a half now.
Yeah, I think the big key that you mentioned, though, is running the ball. When you get into the playoffs, there's always been a certain recipe for success. And, you look at the Super Bowl last year, you have the offense against defense, right? Mahomes against the Niners. And he kind of, obviously, when you have that much of an advantage at the quarterback position, that's the edge you need. But there's been that recipe for success in the playoffs, and it's run the football, control the clock, minimize turnovers. That's something that the Browns have done really well this year. And I picked the Browns to make the playoffs. I actually picked in my preseason.
Very talented roster.
I picked them to go to the AFC Championship. I know at this point it sounds a little crazy, but
you still on board with that?
I was a big believer in Kevin Stefanski because no, at this point, no, I'm not picking.
We can get into that next week. I just wanted to know real quick.
I didn't expect the Bills to be that good.
But you love Stefanski.
I love Stefanski because I looked at that team and I said, look, this team needs to run the ball. Baker Mayfield is not to the point yet, and I don't know if he'll ever be, where he can be a Mahomes and carry the team. He's played really well, but he plays off the heels of a strong running game. You look at Tannehill's turnaround.
They have 2 great running backs, though, in Kareem Hunt and Chubb.
Which they had last year, and that's part of why they fired Freddie Kitchens, because that team did not run the ball. They tried.
I still don't think they're running enough, to be honest.
Right, and they were
crazy.
I mean, and they run the ball a ton. Right, they ran their offense last year through Baker Mayfield, and they failed. They ran it this year through their 2 strong running backs. Now you look at the difference, and the roster's not that much different, right? They had all these same players. In fact, this year they don't have OBJ.
Yeah.
So I look at the coaching. I look at the game plan. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be close. I'm picking the Browns. I realize the COVID situation they got going on. I realize Stefanski's got it. But, hey, we've seen coaching staffs this year. My Dolphins have done it. They've had coaches out because of COVID, and they're still winning games. So you put a strong game plan in place. I just look at the Steelers are coming in very cold. Again, I'm not going to be surprised either way, but I'm picking the Browns.
I get that. I'm all about that coin flip. And interesting, so there's good Baker, bad Baker. The Steelers found bad Baker earlier in the year in the first matchup and beat the crap out of the Browns. Chubb wasn't available in that game. Obviously, good Baker shows up more when Nick Chubb's running the football for Cleveland. So it'll be interesting. Congrats to Cleveland for just getting in. It's been a long drought. And
any Browns fans out there, it's been a very long time.
I know they do. But you talk about the running game, and that, to me, first of all, we got to get through this beer because that was not my favorite. We're going to go to the king of running, Derrick Henry, Tennessee and Baltimore. I think the Titans are the only home underdog this week. Baltimore is actually the favorite in that game, the 5-4 seed. Lamar Jackson finally finding his legs beneath him. And I'm sure he's got some fancy papers in the works contract-wise. Fancy Papers is the next beer from Cigar City Brewing. You haven't had this.
I have not.
All right, it's a hazy Indian Pale Ale.
Love my hazies.
I think you're going to like this a lot. I've had it a couple times at the brewery. I've had it. I don't think I've gotten a 6-pack of it. I don't know if this comes in their IPA mix pack at Publix. It might. I know Florida Man does.
Shout out to, by the way, I've noticed a lot of social media following this week. A lot of people love hazies. I know that's a big thing, but I've seen a lot of accounts almost dedicated to hazies. I've seen you guys out there, so props to you guys.
Hazy.
We love the engagement. Keep telling us what your favorites are, so we can keep trying more of these. I love hazies. Zach loves hazies
for sure, man.
It's a good style.
Now, is it going to be? I'll let you try this. Is it going to be hazy for the Titans? Do you think that they? Let's start here. Do you think the Titans should be an underdog as the only home underdog here? Not comparing all the other teams, but it's weird, right? Like they won their last game.
I don't think that they should be a home underdog on the road. Yes, absolutely. But traditionally speaking, when it comes to betting, home team usually gets 3 points. Right. This year, a little different. Hard to tell exactly how Vegas is laying these lines in a COVID year.
It's the only road team that's favored is Baltimore over Tennessee.
And I struggle with this. I don't know how you feel about this game, but I am curious to know. But I look at this game as...
Are you still a Lamar hater? Is that still a fair thing?
I think I'm not. Well, first of all, let's define hater. I'm not a hater. I want people to be successful, but I look at it and say, is he a guy that I'm confident that can carry that offense to a Super Bowl? No, because I think that we've seen time and time again where when you get him into a situation where the game is on his arm and not his legs, he hasn't really passed that test. In the regular season, he's put up good numbers, but you get him in the playoffs, and they got beat by this Tennessee team last year.
I know. That nobody expected him to get beat by.
Exactly.
Is it one of those where, like, until he proves it, you can't believe it? Because that feels like what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that he's got to prove it. Will he ever prove it? I don't know, because I don't see him taking a drastic step forward in his accuracy and his ability to read defenses and throw the football accurately. I don't know. It's tough for me because – and what's weird is I'm picking Baltimore in this game.
You don't sound like it.
I don't see them going any further than that, though. And I'm only saying that because
so you think their ceiling is beating Tennessee?
That's their ceiling for me.
Interesting.
How do you feel about this game?
I love Derrick Henry. I love what he's doing. I don't like to pick against him this late into the year. Tannehill, his basement's high, and he's had some really high ceiling games this year. So you love what they're doing in the passing game. A.J. Brown is the star we expected him to be. Their defense is awful in Tennessee.
That's the thing.
So bad,
and that's why I'm leaning Baltimore on this, because I look at it and say, okay, you have equally explosive offenses. Okay,
Fair.
It's like
they're different, but they're equally
explosive, right? Whether it's a run game or it's a big pass chunk play, whatever. But I look at these defenses and I say, okay, if I were gun to my head, what's the better defense?
Putting a lot of guns to your head today, bro. I'm trying to drink beer here. You know?
Hey, these are tough conversations. Man. You're putting your opinions on the line. People are going to be able to, fact check you. You're in the radio business. You know this. People are on your ass if you get something wrong.
Nobody remembers when you're right.
Right.
Only thing people care about is when you're wrong.
It's right. It's the world we live in.
So you're going Baltimore, but you think this is their ceiling. I feel very similar. And I'll say this.
They can't stop a nosebleed, Tennessee. Their defense is just so bad. And that's
so it's which offense do you think will be more explosive? And how can you pick against Lamar Jackson?
Well, it goes back to my point. When you take away the ability for the Ravens to run the ball and run those option plays, then you have a chance of winning. I don't see Tennessee being able to do that. So I think Baltimore runs whatever they want, and that's why I think they win, because I do think that even though their defense hasn't been great this year, I think that they definitely have a better defense than Tennessee, so that's why I give them the edge.
Fair. All right, we got one more game left. I'm going to let you sip on that, and then I want to hear what you think about it, including the label, because I think it's a really interesting one here, the fancy papers from Cigar City Brewing. This is the Craft Beer Playbook. Zach Blobner, Brian Ritchie, as we continue on through episode 1. And again, I mentioned featuring Cigar City. We're also talking NFL playoffs. Every week, it'll be something a little different. Make sure you're following us to get the latest updates and what to expect week in and week out from us. We're going to get as local and get out as much as we can, but locally here in the Tampa Bay area. So that includes Sarasota, Clearwater, Bradenton, Tarpon Springs. Like, we're going to get out and about. That also includes downtown Tampa and St. Pete. So,
and one thing I want to point out too is like we said many times, we love the engagement. Like there are breweries that we haven't been to yet. Yeah. If you guys have been around out and about the Tampa area and you've seen something that you stopped in and you tried out a brewery for the first time, you're like, wow, they've got a great stout. They got a great IPA or something. Or I love the atmosphere. tell us about it. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, doesn't matter. Like, tell us about it. We want to feature these beers. This is one of our goals.
We've had a couple people reach out on what is it? Angry Chair, Magnanimous. We've seen some different ones in Seventh Son is another one. So we're definitely going to get out and get about to many of those. Coppertail's another one that's popped up a couple times. So this is just the beginning. We'll try to mix it up. We'll go big, small, like the size of the brewery doesn't matter. The beer taste is what matters. And what did you think about Fancy Papers, man? I want to hear it because that was the first time you tried it. Fancy Papers, which is all about fancy paper. I don't know you. You got the first three. Let me take care of you here for a second.
All right. I like Fancy Papers. I think it's very clean. For a hazy, it still feels very, very light.
Chef's kiss.
And I'm a big IPA guy, so I'm really not picky when it comes to IPAs. I'm also not the one that can be like, well, the nose of this one is better, or this one has slightly
you can't taste the Citra hop as much.
I'm like, hey, give me all the hops you got. I'm a big hoppy guy. I'm hoppy. So
that's gonna be a GIF later.
So
hoppy. Oi.
I like it. And now we're transitioning, going a little darker, going to the brown.
We are. We got one game left. We got one beer left, and the one game left is Colts Buffalo, another matchup that's not expected to be close. Maduro Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned, cheers. This one's special to me because this is what got my dad into craft beer. I love Maduro. I love Maduro, ironically, with a nice cigar. And Cigar City Brewing, obviously, it plays on the Cigar City stuff all around town and all that. But this one just has so many cool things to me. I got a fun story for you real quick. I've shotgunned one of these before.
Wow.
With we were outside a World of Beer in Brandon on Causeway, and I was with a couple friends that Brittany and Jaybird. Mm-hmm. And we had a beach day. We had a good beach day. We had a nice buzz. We want to keep it going before we wanted. The only beers we had in the cooler left were these, and they were warm.
Oh,
that was
like
one
right now. Kind of like these are room temperature.
Yeah, but we're sipping right now. We're having a good time.
That's true.
Now, as far as like that shotgun experience being awful, many believe that the Colts experience against the Bills will also be awful.
I agree.
Is that blunt? Is that easy? The Colts have a great defense. You love Phil Rivers. He's got 20 kids.
I loved him last year. He was on my fantasy team. I don't love him to carry an offense. Listen,
the Colts have won some big games
Dolphins
this year.
Fan, and I hate to admit this, but the Bills to me,
they
look like the team to beat right now.
Over Kansas City?
I'm putting them right.
We'll save that for next week.
We'll
save that for next week. Take me.
Well, hold on. Let me ask you a question. This is before any of the playoffs get started. Don't you think that we should throw out our Super Bowl predictions?
Yeah, for sure. Let's get through this matchup, and then we'll do that. Clearly, you think the Bills are going to be the team.
Indy's got a good defense, okay? And again,
we've got a great defense.
Is it great, though?
Oh, my God.
Is it great, though?
Say something. Jonathan Taylor, I mentioned Montgomery. Taylor's running great now.
And you can run on the Bills. They don't have – the Bills do not have like an elite.
You trust Josh Allen. So okay.
I hate that I have to admit that.
But you understand we just talked about with other players like Lamar. Until you prove it, we can't trust you. Why is that different for Josh Allen?
He's already proven it this year.
Not in the playoffs. You just said it yourself. Big games.
That's fine. That's fine. But here's the thing. But he's been better throwing the ball. Even last year when Lamar Jackson won the MVP, it was a mix. And great, he had 30 passing touchdowns. So, okay, I guess you can say, okay, yeah, he threw the ball, he did it. But, again, pressure situations where the team is leaning on you. And the Bills haven't run the ball well this year. So it's not like you can say that he's leaned on a great run game. This offense has been 100% on the arm of Josh Allen and in the hands of Stephon Diggs. That's my point. I'm
shocked.
Look at the improvement.
So that's one dimensional then. So you're telling me, so like let's say the Indy secondary has a really strong game, and Darius Leonard in that linebacker thing is flying around, and we're seeing interceptions, which wouldn't shock me because Josh Allen this year he's been a lot better. I agree. At one point we were even talking about him being in the MVP race. But it wouldn't shock me if Indy was able to make him turn the ball over because all he's going to be doing is throwing it. And I was big on Zach Moss in the run game. Devin Singletary's another guy back there, obviously. But the Bills' run game is non-existent. So I love Diggs. I love what he's done. I'm not ready to write off the Colts. I'll be honest. You mentioned a lot of upsets today. I don't think I took any yet.
Is this your upset?
This is my upset.
Oh, this would be huge.
I think it would be huge. And again, though, Josh Allen hasn't done it, and until he does it, I don't trust him. Do you remember all the dumb crap he did in last year's loss to the Texans? Do you remember the throw?
Yeah, but that was last year.
Oh, come on.
I look at it and I say, he's never completed even going back to high school, what was he? He's never completed like 60% or 65% of his passes.
What do Bills fans expect? Disappointment. So do I.
Hey, we have a Bills friend, and he does not expect disappointment. I think he's riding high on that train right now, and he's expecting – he actually – you know this. Our friend that's a Bills fan, all right, from Buffalo, preseason predictions I looked at the other day because I was scrolling back. I said, all right, how well did our friends do at picking these games? He put them as the 2 seed.
Ridiculous.
He had Kansas City, and then he had the Bills as the 2 seed. He had that nailed. So, again, sometimes blind fan bias, but – and listen, I hate to say it, but – that team just kicked our ass, and their backups kicked our ass. And I don't know what the hell happened to us in that second half of that game. But, man, you look at the Bills right now, and it's tough to point out a weakness of how to stop that team because they do have a good defense. They have a good passing game. The running game's not great, but they have enough right now with their quarterback, and he's hot.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's on it. The hype train's rolling. That's why I'm picking the Colts. I like that's my
Is that on record?
But listen, that's my upset, right? No, that's my look.
So you're picking the Colts.
First of all,
you're picking them outright.
I learned the radio a long time ago. You got to pick a upset. So if I go,
that's a hell of an upset.
I go chalk across the board. I got to pick a upset. I'm just again though. I've explained it to you. Like I don't love Josh Allen. I think that the Colts defense is underrated.
I don't love him. I hate him. But,
every time, I don't think the Colts are great, but then they've always won games throughout this season that I'm like, what? Indy won this game. They're the ranked here. The rated here as power rankings go. I think the Colts are the shocking play weekend. But I digress. We talked about Super Bowl.
So hold on. I want to pause here real quick. So you are picking the Colts to win.
Yep. Wow. That's my upset. Okay. That's my upset.
We're going to be able to revisit this next week. It's going to be big.
Trust me, I've been putting my name on things for a long time.
So you're going chalk so you're picking one upset. So you're going one against the grain here, and it's going to be the Colts. Yep. For the record, I'm taking
you took
Rams as an upset.
That was a big upset.
And I'm taking Cleveland as an upset. I've got 2 upsets this week.
Did we both pick Baltimore? Reluctantly?
I'm picking Baltimore in a very close game.
Reluctantly.
Very high scoring game. I could easily see 42, 38.
We both picked Baltimore reluctantly. I'm saying that because we both picked Baltimore, but neither of us feel great about it.
Right.
All right. And obviously next week when we chat a little bit, depending on what the topic is, Green Bay and Kansas City in the mix. They both get the bye as the 1 seeds in the AFC and the NFC. My Super Bowl picks, I had it before the year as I believe at the beginning of the year I said Baltimore, New Orleans. No, I said Kansas City. Anyways, either way, I'm going Kansas City, New Orleans are my Super Bowl
I won't
picks.
get into your Cowboys pick because I also had
but
a Cowboys
Dak being hurt is a huge part. And they still had a shot the last week of the season.
I won't get into that.
I'm picking Kansas.
I also picked the Cowboys to go pretty deep, embarrassingly. But
oh, yeah. So I'm picking
our preseason picks.
With the bracket now, I'm picking Kansas City, New Orleans are my 2 picks.
Kansas City, New Orleans. All right. So you're taking a 1 seed and a 2 seed.
Yep.
Oh, man. See, now
you brought it up. I thought you already had this figured out.
That's fine. But now I'm on the spot because I have Kansas City and the Bills neck and neck.
There's no ties in football. As you think about it, reminder, the Craft Beer Playbook, it's episode 1, Zach and Brian. Great day today with Cigar City. We had a bunch of delicious beers to walk you backwards through it. The Maduro, which is a classic. Fancy Papers, one of their newer IPAs. High-Low, not High-Lie, which is a better calorie, not necessarily a better taste than their High Life. Guayabera, and then Margarita Ghost, which we had many people reach out and say that was one we should have. So a lot there. We'll continue to push the giveaway throughout the NFL playoffs, not just this week for the Tom Brady Collectors Football, the Total Wine gift card, and of course a nice beer swag bag from local breweries here in Tampa Bay. So
you got Gronk on there too. I mean, and they're in the pewter outfits, which you saw the video of him jumping that car, right?
Yeah, I know you love that. How have I never seen this before?
It was pretty funny. So, go Rob.
Look at you changing the subject. Who did you pick for your Super Bowl?
You putting a gun in my head?
I'm putting a beer in your belly. What do you got?
This is the 3rd gun to my head today. All right, I'm gonna do it. And it's just because I hate being the chalk guy. I'm going to say the Bills are going to make the Super Bowl.
Okay, so
I'm going to say the Bills.
You have the Packers, obviously.
No, I'm not taking the Packers. I'm taking the Saints.
None of that's chalk. That's 2 seeds.
Right.
Chalk would be Packers.
1-1 would be the chalk.
Yeah.
I'm taking the Chiefs against the Packers.
Yeah.
I'm taking 2 seeds.
Okay.
You took a 1 and a 2.
Yeah.
You're more chalk than I am. I'm taking the Bills against semi-chalk, right? But I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I'm gonna take the Bills and the Saints, and we'll save. We're not doing that. We'll save the actual winner because I got to think about that one a little bit.
How many people figure out their beer a week before they drink it? We're not gonna figure out our beer or our topic.
We decided this 10 minutes before we did this.
That's true. Definitely some of them. All right. Again, everybody, thank you for joining us. We're going to have more happening. Make sure you follow us on social media on Facebook and Instagram at the Craft Beer Playbook. On Twitter, you can follow us at Beer Playbook. Brian Ritchie, Zach Globner, we're doing the damn thing and excited to get out there and talk more. And again, if you haven't looked into the Four Stacks Brewery story, we encourage you to do so. It's somewhere that's struggling right now that was supposed to close down that might have a breath of fresh air, and we're going to stop by there this week and chat with them a little bit more, see how we can help, how you can help, and we'll get that to you as soon as we can. Also, the giveaway, as I mentioned, is still going on. We'll have more information on that if you haven't seen it or heard about it yet, but I think it's a good place to stop, man. A lot of good beer. I'm going to have a water, take a leak, and episode 2 next week.
Let's do it.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.